Some big-time news out of the NFL. It looks like Dan Snyder is as close as he's ever been to selling, yes, selling, the Washington Commanders, as it was reported today that Dan Snyder has hired Bank of America to help inquire about and potentially facilitate a sale of the Washington Commanders. Currently, it looks like they're just exploring a sale. However, as we know and as we've seen, you don't hire a big firm or a big bank to inquire about this or explore these things if you're not at least somewhat serious. And we know with everything that's come out recently about Dan Snyder, we've heard the rumblings that the owners aren't happy with him. We've heard Jim Irsay, a current NFL owner, come out and say that Dan Snyder is basically kind of a black sheep amongst NFL owners, and he's not really well liked. There's been talk of him potentially being voted out. We've heard the reports that Dan Snyder hired a private investigator to essentially dig up dirt on other NFL owners. He has denied this allegation, I should note. And on top of it all, today the news comes out that the Washington Commanders, or Dan Snyder and Tanya Snyder, are looking to sell, or at least exploring a sale. This was a statement here from the Washington Commanders spokesperson. They said, and I quote, "The Snyders remain committed to the team, all of its employees, and the countless fans to putting the best product on the field and continuing the work to set the gold standard for workplaces in the NFL." Well, they're certainly in the process of setting that gold standard, aren't they? Because they're definitely not the gold standard when it comes to that. We also heard from an NFL spokesperson who said, and I quote, "Any potential transaction would have to be presented to the NFL Finance Committee for review and require an affirmative vote by 3/4 of the full membership." That is 3/4 of the 32 teams that there are in the NFL. So that would require about 24 votes or 24 votes in affirmation to make sure that sale is able to go ahead and go on. It's interesting because I think the way we view Dan Snyder, or the way I think people in general and maybe even some media people view Dan Snyder, is not in the best light. There have been calls from Washington fans for a very long time for Dan Snyder to sell the team. There have been calls from myself for Dan Snyder to sell the team. And right now, with everything that's gone on in his life or in his team, in that franchise over the past few years, I think it all kind of came to a head once you had owners publicly coming out and saying what they said, and Jim Irsay coming out and saying what he said about Dan Snyder publicly. Once all that came to the forefront, once all that came out publicly, and once you had other reports of owners looking into potentially booting him from the NFL, I think he kind of said, all right, if I'm going to go out, I guess I'll go out my way. Regardless of how much face he wants to save or his own pride, I don't care about that. It looks like, and again, this is all conjecture, this is all me speculating. It looks like, from what we know, Dan Snyder is, like, you don't start this process, in my opinion, if you don't want to sell the team. It looks like that's the direction things are going. And granted, it could take a while. It could take as long as a whole year for this sale to finally go through and for them to find a buyer, because usually these things are kind of explored in the long run, or explored a long time out of the actual sale, as we've seen in the past with a few of these sales. The Broncos were for sale basically for I think a year and a half or something like that before they actually agreed on who was going to be the person to buy the team. So this could take a while to actually go through, but the directions is going, looks like Dan Snyder's out, which, if you ask me, for my personal opinion, it is a great thing for football. It's a great thing for the people in the DMV, the people in Washington, and it's a great thing for every single player on that Washington football team, because they no longer have to be associated with someone who some people may call a joke of an owner, who some people may call a terrible and potentially bigoted person, given what we know about his veracity, or his stance on wanting to keep the name of the team what it was, knowing not only its racist roots going back to the 1800s, but its racist roots going back to the racist owner of the Washington football team in, I believe, Prescott Marshall was his name back in the day. You know, the guy who named the team, the guy the last guy who allowed for NFL. Actually, no, I don't even think he allowed for desegregation in the NFL. Because he died, and then the Washington football team allowed black players to come onto the team. So that's the history we're talking about. That's the history that was defended, if we're being honest, over this past regime. And if you look at the other things that Dan Snyder's regime has been accused of, you're talking about the culture that I believe Bruce Allen who said the culture was pretty damn good. We're a long ways off from that quote. Aren't we, people? But in the end, it does seem like Dan Snyder, here's the thing, right? I said it before. I'll say it again. The NFL is a very good encapsulation of what rich people care about, and they don't care about racism. They don't care about potential racism, I should say, before he sues me. They don't care about potential racism. They don't care about the accusations of sexual harassment that were levied against the organization. They don't care about any of that stuff. What they will care about, what they do care about, is money. What happened a few months ago? Dan Snyder was caught, or at least accused of either hiding funds from both the taxman, the IRS, and the NFL. And once you mess with the NFL's money, that's when the owners are going to start caring. That's when the owners started speaking up. You didn't hear owners speaking up over anything else. But that, they were like, oh, you're gonna met, Jerry Jones sitting there. Oh, he gonna mess with my money. He thinks he's gonna mess with my money. My money, the money that I used to pay Jason Garrett, who's like a son to me. He's dead wrong. We gonna get him. How about them Cowboys? And look, this is where we are. I'm just saying. It puts things into perspective, does it not? Anyway, you guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.